Welcome to Bitcoin Stuff. I've got a lot of topics to cover in this episode. There's what consciousness is, how to create shared consciousness, how to integrate with the hive mind. So let's get started, shall we? Let's think back to the idea from my last episode that Bitcoin is like the sky, and the Bitcoin economy is the land beneath the sky. A Bitcoin transaction is like writing on the sky, and reading information from the blockchain is like looking up at the sky. In the Bitcoin jungle, there is a species of monkey called Homo Bitcoinus that has an artificially increased effective Dunbar number of 10 billion. And what's the Dunbar number? Well, there's a proposed correlation between the average brain to body mass ratio for a species of monkey and the number of individuals in the groups that these monkeys live in. And the Dunbar number is the expected group size as predicted by brain to body mass ratio. Homo Bitcoinus has a Dunbar number of 10 billion. In other words, it uses computers to augment the number of individuals that are known to it. There was a very primitive species of monkey called Homo sapien that had a Dunbar number of 150. Today, the few remaining individuals of Homo sapiens have been uplifted by advanced technology and are capable of being productive members of society. There was an earlier species to Homo Bitcoinus, which was called Homo Facebookus. Homo Facebookus had a very high effective Dunbar number, but his species was limited by the requirement that each individual have its own database of other individuals. The first individual of Homo Bitcoinus, a monkey called Satoshi Nakamoto, said, "Why don't we have a shared database? When we share, we are all better off individually." So every individual of Homo Bitcoinus has knowledge of every other individual. Okay, so what does this individual of Homo Bitcoinus want to do? He wants to hyperconnect. He wants to maximize friendship. In fact, there's a centrality contest, and he wants to win it. And what does centrality mean? That means that between any two other monkeys, there is likely to be a short path which goes through this monkey. He wants to be the most in-between monkey. How does Homo Bitcoinus hyperconnect? Well, there are two kinds of information that Homo Bitcoinus uses to assess other monkeys. There's history and proof of work. Monkeys who have provided good information in the past get better connections. So all monkeys are in competition over having a good history, and they want to provide good information even if it seems like no one is listening, because later on, once people realize how good it is, other monkeys will want to connect with him a lot more. The monkeys also have a means of advertising their current information, and that is proof of work. See all the leading zeros? Monkeys who have provably lost energy in order to create their messages get more attention from other monkeys. This is an application of the handicap principle, and the handicap principle says that a demonstrated opportunity cost, in other words, a handicap that is easily assessed by other monkeys, is a distinguisher, because over time only
more fit individuals can handicap more. And therefore it is rational for other individuals to treat handicaps as honest signals about other individuals, because the cost of the handicap limits the use of the signal. So someone who handicaps themselves must be able to gain back from others what they have lost. Therefore, they have to be good. They have to be worth it.
Real life is exactly like Harrison Bergeron, except that it's not about egalitarianism, so you don't want to handicap yourself too much, then you're down to average again. You want to handicap enough so that everyone else can see what you are superior at.
So individuals of Homo Bitcoinus assess their own information, and they try to provide proof of work in proportion to the genuine value of the information. Because if they assess themselves too low, then they won't have as much attention as they could have gotten. But if they assess themselves too much, they'll waste too much energy on proof of work. By the same token, the other monkeys all listen in proportion to proof of work. So they pay more attention to messages that demonstrate higher expected lost energy. Because of the handicap principle,
Bitcoiners can treat information from other Bitcoiners as if it is baseline altruistic.
So they can open up their minds, and they want to listen to new information in proportion to proof of work.
And they want to be able to understand and process all information that comes to them with proof of work. They don't want to wall off their minds. Instead, they want to be as open-minded as possible.
And they treat this information as if it's good enough to be coming from inside their own brains. Each monkey is like a neuron in a much larger brain. And the proof of work is like the weights of the inputs to the neuron. That doesn't mean don't use judgment, because not everything from your own brain is good. If there was a message with a lot of proof of work, but the message was something like, "Hey kid, I've got candy. Come into my van." Well, you should know not to listen to that. Why does he want to hyperconnect so that he can win the centrality contest? To predict the price of Bitcoin.
Now, in the Bitcoin jungle, dollars have long since been forgotten, so there is no price of Bitcoin as such. To the monkeys, this is about the price of energy in Bitcoin. All the monkeys want to consume more energy, so that's why they want to predict the price of Bitcoin. Because if they can, they will receive a psychic reward as a result of having a higher energy consumption capacity. The key word here is psychic, because you don't actually get to have more energy until you spend the Bitcoins. Long ago there was a mutation of Homo Bitcoinus called Homo which briefly infested the Bitcoin jungle and which received a lot of psychic reward, but whose individuals did not ultimately consume very much energy. Homo Bitcoinus doesn't only want psychic reward, it wants a real reward. Homo Bitcoinus wants a genuine capacity to consume energy. What is the connection between hyperconnection and knowledge of value? Well, what is the value of Bitcoin? Well, it's the same as the value of any other form of money. It's the future productivity of the economy of profit seekers in that form of money. In other words, it is the future goods and services that will be available if you have it. A form of money is a group of investors who are all invested in one another. The people who believe in the long-term value of the money are also the ones who are motivated to improve the economy. In order for them to use the money as their savings, they must all depend on the future productivity of one another. Monkeys need to think about long-term value because the value of savings is to be independent of time. Because savings means that's your money for a rainy day. It's the money that you have for when something happens and you need to move very quickly. You don't know when that day is. Now, if you're speculating on Bitcoin, that means at some future time Bitcoin will be valuable. But savings means at any future time Bitcoin will be valuable. How does one monkey tell if the future productivity of the other monkeys is any good? Well, what is the cause of productivity? The cause is profit seeking. And what is profit seeking? Well, profit seeking means activities aimed at getting more bitcoins through commerce. So you start with a certain sum of bitcoins and you strategize on how to use it along with your labor and time in order to have more bitcoins by the end. So in order to correctly value Bitcoin, an individual of Homo Bitcoinus has to look at the other denizens of the Bitcoin jungle who will prefer Bitcoin to other forms of money and evaluate their future success at profit seeking. He wants to integrate this information. Now, in the Bitcoin jungle, there are no other forms of money. So profit seeking naturally means trying to get more bitcoins without having to mention bitcoins. That's just assumed. Everybody knows that. But in the past, there were other forms of money. So if this monkey had lived back then, he would have had to have distinguished carefully between other profit seekers in Bitcoin and profit seekers in earlier forms of money. Because remember, a form of money is a group of investors that are all invested in one another. So if he had made a mistake, he might have been exploited by a Homo sapien who was only after more dollars rather than more bitcoins, and who therefore wasn't really invested in the other investors. Bitcoiners who are all profit-seeking in Bitcoin all want to connect more closely and to form good relationships with one another, because in order to realize the value of Bitcoin, they need to continuously learn from one another. Monkeys have to look out at the whole economy and think, will the ideas being built today result in more productivity later? First of all, is it possible to profit seek, or did somebody change the rules again, making it impossible? Second, how are the ideas? Are there a lot? Are they any good? Will they genuinely result in sustained future production? Or are they just the ideas of a mania? What about your own ideas? Because you want to improve your own investment. Will your ideas grow the economy? Monkeys need to profit seek themselves as well as assess the profit seeking of others. So what is successful profit seeking? The application of differential knowledge to a calculated risk. And what does that mean? Well, a calculated risk means that you do something that looks risky to other people, but which you know how to make less risky for you. And differential knowledge means whatever you know better than other people. So you have to think about what your differential knowledge is, and in order to do that, you have to look at the other monkeys and figure out what they know. And once you are aware of your differential knowledge, you figure out how to use that to take a calculated risk, because then you can do something that the other monkeys don't know how to do. If you were doing something that everyone else already knew how to do, they would have already done it. So there wouldn't be an opportunity to get more Bitcoins. That's why profit seeking is finding reality. You are applying your differential knowledge to initiate new production. And after you have earned the profit, and other people can see what you have built, then the market has learned about the reality that you brought in, and the profit opportunity goes away. In the future, whatever trick you used won't be as good anymore, because other people will have figured it out. Bitcoin is valuable when there are many profit seekers who are all bringing their own reality into Bitcoin. So the brain learns profit seeking cannot occur without individualism. Individuals must be creative in order to find their own connection to reality. Bitcoin's growth depends on teaching one another through profit seeking, because the only way to be a better neuron than the rest is by arriving at knowledge that the other neurons do not have. And to other people that looks like taking a risk, but you actually want to be successful, so you want it to be a calculated risk. Now, when a brain receives a psychic reward, all connections that recently fired are strengthened, so that in the future this brain will do more of whatever it was doing when it was rewarded. And the Bitcoin hive mind is just like that, because when the price goes up, all the monkeys receive a psychic reward at the same time, and they will all do more of what they were doing before. Every individual of Homo Bitcoinus is trained by the price of Bitcoin, and they all share a similar experience, so their minds all grow together. Monkeys who cannot predict the price must be trained by the price. They do what the shared consciousness tells them. But monkeys who can are able to choose how they are trained. They can be independent of the price, and they can be individuals within the hive mind. And they want to become individuals because then they can grow more. They want all the other monkeys to grow, but they also want to position themselves to grow the most. And in order to get an idea of whether Bitcoin is over or undervalued, each individual of Homo Bitcoinus must look out at the creativity of the whole economy. And there are two things that he has to look at: the real future productivity as best as he can see it objectively, and the other monkey's idea about future productivity. How aware are the other monkeys about present creativity? And each monkey tries to compare their own view with that of their neighbors. He wants to know lots of other monkeys so that he knows what the whole economy looks like. And he also wants to know lots of monkeys so that he knows what the other monkeys believe about the economy. and he has to think about whether they match one another.
If he can see that there's more future production than the other monkeys are anticipating, then he wants to buy bitcoins, and if there is less, he wants to sell. And a change in the price of Bitcoin is caused by the simultaneous understanding of all monkeys that the real future productivity of the economy is different from what they had been anticipating.
And if a monkey thinks that he has differential knowledge, he can prepare for that simultaneous realization and prepare to be rewarded more or less. All monkeys benefit from one another's differential knowledge, so all Bitcoiners love one another's creativity. Creativity is that which causes growth. They all want to apply their differential knowledge. So they are all creating a sum of knowledge that grows as time goes on. And in order to contribute to that sum, they have to understand it so well that they know how it is mistaken. Hence, monkeys will want to know the best current state of knowledge. And they will want to transmit the best current knowledge to make it easier for the other monkeys to examine it and find their differential knowledge. Knowledge doesn't have to mean provable, because ultimately we're talking about something in the future, something that can't really be known until the future happens. Someone whose mind is attuned to the rest of the monkeys can't necessarily prove that they know anything. But that's okay, because all of the monkeys are responsible for their own knowledge, because they have to value that knowledge by proof of work. All the monkeys want to listen to what the rest think is knowledge, and not everything that gets said is intelligent, but by the same token, something that looks like nonsense might turn out to be good information. So the monkeys all want to be able to listen to what all the rest are thinking. And remember, all the monkeys are thinking about future production, because that's what the price of Bitcoin is. So they're thinking about the future of the whole economy. They're thinking about the future profit-seeking of all the other monkeys. And they want to integrate that information. They want to accurately tell each other what the whole economy is like, and about how creative it is, and about how successful that profit-seeking will be. So not just facts and science, but feelings. They all want an accurate integration of the whole system, a system that wants to grow. And in order to grow, it needs to know itself, and they all want to help it to know itself. The properties of Bitcoin make it possible for many monkeys to work together to create that accurate integration. And they are all thinking about it, trying to find how to improve it. And once they have prepared to receive a psychic reward, they can use proof of work to transmit their differential knowledge. And then other monkeys will simultaneously realize how they are mistaken about Bitcoin's future productivity. A monkey who is thinking about future energy consumption capacity can value his information and can value its effect on the economy. So he would be willing to spend energy for a few more leading zeros, because he can create a message that is rational for other monkeys to examine more closely. Over time, if you have good information, then other monkeys will want to connect with you more closely, and you will become a neuron that is closer to the seat of consciousness. One step closer to winning the centrality contest, and they will get better information in the future. Because of proof of work, all Bitcoiners can have an idea about what all other Bitcoiners are looking at. So there's a shared picture that is being drawn by Bitcoiners to one another, and it is made out of messages and proof of work that is attached to them. This shared picture may not make very much sense, but if one of the monkeys can find order in it, then it may be rational for this monkey to attach proof of work to his own processing of this picture, and therefore it will ultimately consist of a very complex, confusing mixture that has small copies of itself. Each copy is a different individualized version of the whole. But over time, those copies, which genuinely create order, will be adopted into the whole, and therefore the shared picture shall become more organized as time goes on. All monkeys psychoanalyze the shared picture. They try to be like a mirror and reflect the whole economy back onto itself so that it can view itself, however imperfectly. All monkeys compete to focus the shared picture until the shared picture becomes one of perfect self-reflection. That is the shared consciousness, and understanding it is very valuable, and it therefore occupies a large fraction of the brain power of Homo Bitcoinus. Now, why does this monkey want to hyperconnect? In other words, why is it important to know all the other monkeys in the world rather than a relatively small sample of them? Well, he wants to know what the shared consciousness is going to think before it is conscious. In other words, he wants to be at the seat of consciousness. He wants to be the best neuron he can be in the bigger brain. Now, the shared consciousness is what's called a non-Gaussian process, which means that a random sample does not converge on an average value faster than the square root of the size of the sample. Although everyone in the Bitcoin jungle knows what the shared consciousness is thinking now, but if they want to know how the shared consciousness is changing, the changes that they will see in a small random sample of monkeys will not converge on the real change, at least as fast as the square root of the size of the sample. If they want to see how it is changing, they need to be closely connected enough to all other monkeys, that they can see everyone.
Individuals matter. Only individuals can change the shared consciousness, even if they can only do it a little bit at a time. And that means if you want to know about new thoughts before they happen, you need to know everybody.
So they all want to increase their Dunbar numbers so that they can be a bigger part of the shared consciousness, and they use up as much of their brains as they can to simulate the whole, but must at the same time dig deep in themselves, find their own individuality, and that is how they learn their differential knowledge.
The cumulative effect of all monkeys attempting to focus the shared consciousness in order to enable it to find its own unity connects all ideas faster than a random walk, and consequently its mind is always clear. Each monkey has its own version of the shared consciousness in its mind, but they are all trying to converge on the same idea. No individual monkey having the ability to consistently be ahead of the rest. They are an intelligent swarm.
What are they like?
They are like a flock of birds, or like a school of fish, except that the swarm does not exist physically. It is a swarm around an idea about what the swarm wants to do. And they all use proof of work to show each other what they think the whole looks like.
With proof of work, they can affect the whole, because it's rational to look more closely at messages with more proof of work. So if they have prepared to receive a psychic reward, they can assess their future energy consumption capacity and weigh that against lost energy now in exchange for more attention now. And if that is worth it, then they can use proof of work to bring forth consciousness. They want to listen because only those who have correctly estimated their own future energy consumption capacity will be able to consistently spend more energy now than the rest. And proof of work is demonstrated opportunity cost. It's a cost that can be objectively estimated. So it's like the swarm has antlers, and when one of them is ahead, it shows off its antlers. And once the rest have understood the logic of what they're seeing, they will have no choice but to stampede toward their new leader. That's right. Homo Bitcoinus is a herd animal.